Dr. Swapna ma'am, Dr. Asha sir, Dr. Harshali ma'am, and entire management of Srinetra Trivandrum for giving me this opportunity. So, cataract being the leading cause of visual impairment worldwide, surgery is the mainstay of treatment, and phacoemulsification has revolutionized cataract surgery, providing excellent visual outcome and faster recovery. Phaco uses ultrasonic energy. These are mechanical waves of more than 20 kilohertz that actually causes mechanical as well as thermal damage to the endothelium. So behind this revolutionary phacoemulsification, it can also cause damage to the corneal endothelium. This is mainly because of the small confined space that is the anterior chamber in which the surgery is being performed, making it inevitable that there is contact between the corneal endothelium and the instruments or fluid that has been used. Various other factors that contribute to endothelial cell loss postoperatively include anterior chamber depth, axial length, the age of the patient, density of cataract, etc. So we did a retrospective clinical analysis where we compared two phacoemulsification platforms over a period of 6 months in our department. So we compared two phacoemulsification platforms, one which predominantly uses torsional ultrasound or OCIL, with IP or intelligence phaco to reduce energy and minimize repulsion, that is a Centurion, with a Veritas vision system which predominantly uses longitudinal ultrasound energy. So our objectives were to compare endothelial cell loss between Veritas and Centurion, to compare changes in morphology and corneal thickness markers across both platforms, and to identify independent risk factors for excessive endothelial cell loss. So we included patients who underwent uncomplicated phacoemulsification over a period of 6 months. We compared complete pre- and post-operative specular microscopic data, and we excluded patients with pre-existing corneal pathology, history of corneal trauma, previous surgery, and incomplete data records. So these were the baseline demographics and clinical characteristics. Moving on to cell density pre versus post-surgery, both groups showed a statistically significant cell loss post-operatively, but the difference between the groups were not statistically significant. In terms of CV changed more in Veritas compared to Centurion. This was because eyes with abnormal CV was done more on Veritas compared to Centurion, but there was no significant change in CV within either group and no difference between groups, and both arms trended similarly. Similarly, in terms of hexagonity, both groups tended towards lower hexagonity, and decrease was slightly more in Centurion, and neither reached statistical significance within groups or between groups. And Veritas showed a small but statistically significant increase in pachymetry, while Centurion did not, but the between group difference was not significant. And this 2% increase in pachymetry in Veritas remained within normal range and had no clinical consequence. And denser cataracts were associated with greater cell loss, which was independent of machine type. Even though more NS3 cataracts were done on Veritas, there was no significant difference between the machine. And older age were associated with greater cell loss, but the effect was comparable across both the machines. So after controlling for all confounders, machine type was not a significant predictor for postoperative cell density, and the model explained 66% of variance in outcomes, which was primarily by preoperative CD, age, and cataract grade. And moving on to the predictors of excessive cell loss, low preoperative CD and denser NS3 cataracts were independent risk factors for excessive cell loss, and machine type was not a risk factor. And in our study, higher age was not strongly associated with lower pre-op CD, and if anything, there was a slight trend towards higher CD with age, but this was too weak to be meaningful. And we had 0 cases of corneal decompensation. So this was a study summary. There was no machine superiority. Both platforms demonstrated equivalent outcomes for all measured parameters, CD, CV, hexagonity, and pachymetry. We had an accepted cell loss magnitude. Both groups showed cell loss within the expected range for moderate phacoemulsification, and this was consistent with the published literature. And preoperative CD, age, and cataract grade were independent predictors of postoperative CD, and we had 0 cases of corneal decompensation. Why was there no difference between the platforms? Because the same experienced surgeon used both machines, effectively standardizing techniques as a confounder. We had a balanced case mix. Groups were well matched for cataract grade, age, sex, and baseline endothelial parameters. And both machines include advanced irrigation aspiration systems that minimize surge and maintain anterior chamber stability. So we came to a conclusion that it is not the machine type, but actually the surgical techniques that matters more, especially when it comes to high-risk cases. So let's look at few intraop endothelial protection mistakes usually committed by beginner surgeons, the ones which we usually overlook, but the endothelium never forgives. Here you can see that the surgeon is making multiple attempts to enter the anterior chamber with a phaco tip. This can cause unnecessary wound distortion and anterior chamber instability. This not only compromises control but can also increase the risk of endothelial touch and DMTs at the port site. Here you can see that the surgeon is trying to chop the nucleus. There is excessive movement of the phaco tip as well as the second instrument. And you can see that there is excessive nucleus chatter. These unnecessary movements can bring these nucleus fragments dangerously close to the endothelium, causing unnecessary mechanical trauma. Whenever there is excessive nucleus chatter, we should make sure that our phaco settings are adequate. For most of the cataracts, an efficient torsional phaco can be done effectively with high vacuum to reduce repulsion with an optimum aspiration flow rate and with an energy of 60 to 65%. Here, the surgeon takes prolonged time removing that last bit of cortex. Chasing that last bit of cortex, what may look like perfection can come with a cost. Here you can also see that the irrigation port is facing directly towards the endothelium, causing unnecessary fluid stress. So how to overcome these mistakes? Let's look at some intraop strategies that we follow for endothelial protection. Here, the surgeon is demonstrating a soft shell technique where initially a dispersive viscoelastic is inserted into the anterior chamber to protect the endothelium, followed by a cohesive OVD to maintain the anterior chamber. Surgeon is making a controlled entry with the phaco tip into the anterior chamber. The controlled chop technique is carried out. There is no excessive movement of the phaco tip or the second instrument. There is no much turbulence in the anterior chamber and no nucleus chatter. And you can see that the surgeon is feeding the nucleus fragments to the phaco tip with the aid of second instrument. And while doing irrigation aspiration, we should make sure that our irrigation port is facing away from the endothelium to avoid unnecessary fluid stress to the endothelium. So we also explored the possibilities of leveraging AI for endothelial health assessment. So we did an exercise where we compared the color specular microscope images of few patients. For example, like the ones I have shown on the screen. The first image, you can see that almost all of the cells are equal in size and shape. They are either yellow, green or teal in color. The second image, you can see areas of cell dropouts, and few cells are enlarged and blue in color, suggestive of pleomorphism. In the third image, you can see that almost all the cells are enlarged and are blue in color, suggestive of polymegathism. So we assessed these images with the aid of AI, and this was the results that we got. For example, for the first image, cell density was given approximately as 1800 to 2200. The second image is 1200 to 1600. And to the third image is 600 to 1000. And CV and hexagonity was given respectively. And these results were very much comparable with our high-end specular microscope. So this gave us confidence, and we went ahead and assessed the specular reflection images from slit lamp, aiming for a simple, cost-effective and affordable approach which can be done by anyone, anywhere, provided the technique is adequate, especially for pre-op cataract screening. For example, for this specular reflection image that I have shown on the screen, this was the result that we got with the aid of AI, and this was also very much comparable with our high-end specular microscope. So currently, we are working on smartphone-based endothelial cell imaging and endothelial health assessment, hoping that this technology will be useful to patients who may not be able to afford a specular microscope, or to patients who may not have access to specular microscope, especially in resource-limited centers. Thank you.